And so here we are. It is the peak, meaning it's the most important, the most successful, and therefore the most influential stage of the first 1,000 years of Chinese history. And so you should look forward to why. What's the big deal about the Western Zhou? I am passing out to you 2 documents. Oh, and you will see me laugh with me. It only, goes from bad to worse, from tragedy to comedy. Friday, did I see you? No, I didn't see you Friday, right? I didn't see you Thursday because Delta was FUBAR, effed up beyond all recognition, and delayed me 24 hours from being here Thursday morning to teach you the way I wanted to be. Thanks, Delta. And I got here Friday, and I taught Friday, and it was nice to be back. But Friday night, I got a flu, and I was bedridden with the flu all day Saturday night, Sunday night. I was literally in bed blowing my nose, 2 rolls of toilet paper, right? Just blow, throw, sweating on my back for 2 days. Monday morning, I tried to roll out of bed, and my back gave out because it got sore. I have a spastic lower back. So you're going to see me like going, right? It's just comic. My back is spastic. I went to get acupuncture yesterday. It didn't work, blah, blah, blah. So, look, I'm laughing about it. You laugh about it, too. Jesus freaking Christ. I got a massage and acupuncture. It worked 2 years ago, but it didn't work this time because it's more extreme. I want you to put your names on both of these. They are gorgeous readings, and it's your homework. 8 pages of reading. Hear this. That means I want you to spend the time it would take to do 16 pages of reading. I want you to read this slowly because this is the Shang-Zhou. These are the legendary Yao, Shun, and Yu that you have only read briefly about in the Cosmology of East and West thing. And it's from the Western Zhou, the Shang-Zhou, the Book of Documents. It excites me every semester to be at this point of the class because I have great pleasure reading the Canon of Yao, the Canon of Shun, and the Councils of Yu, the 3 most important chapters of a much larger book, the Shang-Zhou, the Classic of Documents, the Book of History. So put your names on these. One is the actual readings, hear me. The other is a reading guide. And so the reading guide is me telling you to take notes on it because I'm trying to point you towards the meat and the wine of this stuff. So we will have a seminar on this next class. It will be pleasant. It will be. So put your name on it and then put it away. You're welcome. Thank you. You guys had 2, right? I gave you 1 of each. Bless you. I think it's smarter to just do it one at a time. 3. You're welcome. Okay. You're welcome. Okay, so all of you have at least 1 document. You don't have the reading guide yet, right? Okay, thank you. If anybody has any hardcore muscle relaxers, talk to me after class. Let's do a back alley deal. I need drugs. What? Uh, I don't have time for yoga. I need fast-acting Western medicine. Oh, you already have one? Okay, thank you. All right, so just to make sure I did this right, everybody has the reading guide and the packet, right? Raise your hand if you don't. You have 2 packets. Okay. Oh. Okay, so let's get started. First, I've got to set up several concepts and all sorts of things that that are interesting in and of themselves. So on the board here, and don't start copying it down yet. This is traditional Chinese history. When I say traditional history, what am I trying to? Why do I say traditional? Please show me that you understand this distinction I'm trying to make between 2 types of historical claim. This is traditional Chinese history. What's the other type of? Why am I saying traditional? I know that's not the clearest question in the world. Maybe this, maybe that. Guys, come on. We're trying to get to the distinction. Thank you, Alex. Right. And so when we say traditional, what are we then saying? Back in the day, this is what they thought was history, right? So tradition said this happened in the past. Historians today might not accept all of it, right? But this is the ancient Chinese view of their history, all right? Just like in the Bible, right? Abraham was 1,000 years earlier, and Noah and the flood, and all that's traditional Jewish history, right? As opposed to the historically verified, like, right? We have no question this is actually true because we have a lot of evidence. All right, so here's traditional Chinese history, some of which has been verified, some of which has not. You remember Yu, right? And in fact, you're going to read Yu. That's the 3rd reading because Yao was first, then Shun, then Yu. Yu was the Noah, remember? Yu was China's Noah, who fought the flood, right? And so Yu started the Xia dynasty, XIA. I will just share this with you because I think it's interesting. I'm reading a book that I picked up at the used bookstore because of Delta's FUBAR, so it's maybe actually good luck that Delta screwed me out of a day of my life because I was stuck in a hotel in downtown Chattanooga, and I went to a used bookstore, and I found this book, and I read about this book, the Chinese Revolution in Historical Perspective. What a boring title, but it's a fantastic book. And he's actually doing world history from the Chinese point of view, not from the Western point of view. And so he's actually like saying, to the Chinese, Western history is really, it looks different. In any case, what I learned from him was a new detail that I didn't know about the Xia. Quote, something like the Xia existed. It was just, they weren't yet writing on bone or bronze, so we haven't found anything. But what we do know is that the character for Xia, here's the point, the character for Xia is related radically at the root to the character for elegant. For elegant. And so the Shang and the Zhou afterwards, and all of the ancient dynasties, actually considered themselves to be the heirs, the people of the Xia, the elegant, the highly civilized culture. So it's kind of that China proper idea, remember? China proper, right? This is real China because the culture, this is real Chinese culture, right? With me? Remember this stuff? Nodding heads, like Jackie yesterday, Miss Bagan and I were like playing around with computer stuff, and your picture came up in her class or something. I was like, oh, I love her. And she said, why? I was like, because she always like helps me, like going, yes, you're making sense. You have no idea how much just that. And she does that for me. It helps. Where was it? Yes, China proper. So, okay, so you started it. And traditional dates, 2200. And it's a dynasty. Now, vocab, basic stuff. Let's make sure that we all know basic, like 9th grade vocabulary. What is a dynasty? Somebody please define dynasty for me. Thank you, Alex. I couldn't have said it better myself. A succession of rulers from the same family. The throne stays in the family, It goes from father to son, or from brother to brother, in whatever way. It stays in the bloodline. That's a dynasty. A kingdom is just a monarchy, right? Now, a monarchy is usually dynastic, but sometimes it's not. There were different families that ruled the Roman Empire, right? In any case, so Yu starts the Shao dynasty. And 600 years later, the last son or descendant of Yu, his name was Jie, J-I-E. And he was apparently quite the dirtbag, as opposed to Yu, who was the opposite, a virtuous man. Another pause. Here's another question. Now we all know that we know what a dynasty is. What is it? Whatever you need. Maybe this will help too. Thank you. That's exactly what you should do when you need light. Just turn them on. Did that help or hurt? Should I lower it? Is that causing glare? It helps. Okay. All right. I can't see it now. Oh, so our next sort of vocab question. What is a generation? Or more accurately, how long how many years does it take to go from one generation to the next generation? Talk amongst yourselves and make your best guesses very quickly. That being the case, what would you as a historian say, here's a good average for the whole freaking last 5,000 years? All right, let's move this train forward. Nadine, what's your guess?
Well, Alex was saying that it's probably a fluid number, but we'd assume it would take 20 to 30 years to have enough more kids.
20 to 30 years, right? I'm born, so I'm the beginning of a new generation, and I need to make a baby to start the next generation and have a son typically, right? Whatever. And so that would be roughly 20 to 30 years. This year, because I was silly yesterday, wait a minute, this is Monday, Friday, and settled on 30, we'll call it, no, I settled on 25. 25, 30 years, whatever, right? Let's call it 25. So now we can actually estimate how many generations it was from the beginning of civilization, the first urban people, not farming villagers, but urban people living in cities, us today in 2000, back to 5000 BCE. How many centuries is that? Come on. How many centuries is it? 5,000 years. How many centuries is that? It's not 5 centuries, that would be 500 years. It's 50 centuries. Okay, and how many generations in a century? We settled on 4. 50 centuries times 4 generations per century. So between us today and the beginning of actual like living in cities and writing and actual civilization, complex society, we've got about 200 generations. Surprising, isn't it? That only 200 generations. You would think it would be much, much larger. But no, there's only been like 200 generations from the beginning of history to us today. So we see then that 600 years, 6 centuries, 24 roughly generations of rulers in the Yu dynasty. And at the very end, this Jie was quite a dirtbag. He was abusing the people who he ruled. Taxes were high. Stop playing with each other. Taxes were high. They weren't used for the people's benefit. They were used for the king's benefit and for the king's elite cronies. And a minister call it the vice president, the secretary of state, the prime minister, whatever. The top official of Jie, of the last Xia king, came to him and said, "You are losing your legitimacy. The people are starting to turn against you. You must change your way, or else this dynasty is lost." And Jie was so corrupt, so arrogant, so deaf to sage advice that he laughed in the minister's face. Ha ha ha. As long as the sun shines, the Shah will be king. And the minister, whose name I won't abuse you with, sought a good man who he knew was a king in heart and not just in title, who the people deserved to have ruling them. And that man's name was Tang. And this minister betrayed his corrupt king and said, "Tang, I will help you overthrow Jie and end the Xia dynasty." And so he did. And Tang, therefore, is the founder of the Shang dynasty in roughly 1600. Tang kept this minister as his own minister as he started the Shang. Now, 1600, we don't have written evidence from then, but again, 1250 with Wu Ding, we do, the oracle bones. Wu Ding's queen, Fu Hao, we have bronzes from her. So 1250, that's historical now. And Wu Ding was, by all evidence, not a bad king. Fu Hao was not, by all evidence, a bad queen. But 200 years after them, in 1050, now we come to the last Shang king. My favorite, it's my favorite horror story of Chinese history. It's pornographic, so get ready. No, Mr. Burrell, give us the Disney version. Oh, it's a virgin, Freudian slip, version. Here's the story, and it's from the Shujing. It's shocking stuff. How bad was this guy? Well, he was this bad. It was nice to be the king, because the king can raise taxes as high as the king wants, and the king can send soldiers to punish anybody who refuses to pay those taxes, and who criticizes the king. What did he do that was worth criticizing? Well, he used taxes and commoner labor to construct his royal palace. His royal park behind his palace. That park is epic. Make the people excavate an artificial lake, not a pond, a lake. Bucket by bucket, make them dig, sweat, and toil to make a massive lake. And then, instead of water, have them fill it with wine that they make from their grain, rice wine. Because I want a lake of wine. And so they did. And in my lake of wine, I want luxurious gold-plated boats. And in the middle of that lake of wine, I want several islands with trees planted on them, so that my friends and I can enjoy the pleasures of elite life by hopping in this gold-plated boat and having some common person steer for us, because we don't do things with our hands other than drink the wine as we're being rowed across this lake towards the island, where, once we get to the island, we've had enough drink, we're now hungry. And so on those islands, I want two things. First, to satisfy the physical stomach hunger. Foreshadowing. I hope you hear it. I want the trees not hung with fruit. No, I want meat hanging from those trees. I want, in my wine lake, meat trees. The first barbecue, perhaps. So have the peasants, whenever I command it, bring goats and pigs and chickens, roast them on those islands so that me and my friends can have a nice, luxurious party, drinking the peasants' wine and eating their livestock. And once we've got a nice drunk going and a nice full stomach, almost all of our desires are satisfied, but there's one left. Me and my homies, me and my bros need to satisfy. And for that, we need the common men of this kingdom who have sweated to make this lake and have been forced to give me their pigs and goats and chickens. If they have pretty daughters, I want those too. And those daughters will be on those islands under those trees so that me and my friends, the elites, can enjoy the privileges of elite living by finally enjoying the daughters of the people who are also feeding us and building us our pleasure part. That's Zhou Shen and his infamous royal park. A minister came to Zhou Shen and said, "Dude, you're losing it." "O king, your first ancestor, Tang, was a good man, and people came to him because he was good. And look what you were doing to his name, look what you were doing to his legacy. You disgusting piece of decay, you piece of moral rot. You are losing the entire legacy of your ancestors' hard work." And Zhou Shen, who was apparently 7'5", like, epic, incredible Hulk kind of guy, all muscles, no brain, no heart, but really good at flexing his muscles, laughed at this minister and said, "I have heard that good men have more orifices in their heart than normal men. And I've always been curious about that, and you're a really good man to come to me and say that I'm risking my ancestors' accomplishments. So, servant, slice open his chest and pull out his heart, and let's see if a good man's heart really does have a different biology than normal people's." And so we did. He chopped open this man's chest and pulled out his heart and laughed about it. Zhou Shen's wife, Queen Yu-Jie, was quite an item herself, the perfect woman for this perfect man. She also had pretty bizarre tastes. On a Friday night, if she wanted to have a little romance at the end of the date, she could find no better way to get in the mood for it than her favorite form of entertainment. It's nice to be the queen. She had it special made. A bronze pan, roasting pan, that started maybe where Jackie is sitting and ended where Sarah is sitting. A bronze roasting pan of about yay length, which, being a roasting pan, was placed above a fire. And on each side of the pan was put a platform. And so you walked up a ladder, there's a platform, and suspended from platform on that side to platform on that side was a bronze pole, like a telephone pole, bronze pole. You put roasting oil in the pan, you oil the bronze pole, and you get some commoner, it doesn't matter whom. And mind you, this might sound bizarrely improbable, but just think of our own Western history. The Roman Empire hey, let's have some fun. Let's go to the Colosseum and let's watch slaves kill each other in gladiatorial combat. Or let's feed Christians to lions and watch that. That's fun, right? So elites, East and West, apparently had no compunction about watching the Nonali suffer for their entertainment. How did Daji get her pleasures and her thrills? By watching the commoner forced to climb that platform and then do basically a tightrope walk across this bronze pole that's oiled and slippery, and he is barefoot over burning oil, boiling oil, right? Now, what do you think the chances are of a peasant being able to walk this distance on a oiled bronze metal pole, barefoot, and the pole itself is roasting hot? Very slim, yeah. And so what's the result going to be? Off he plunges into the boiling oil and is roasted alive, which gave her endless thrills, and they had a good time at the end of the night. I have two questions for you now. Do you have any questions before I ask them? My two questions are this. A, what pattern do you see between the Shang's story and the Xia's story? And you can talk amongst yourselves. That's the first question. What pattern do you see? And the second question, more interesting. Now let's do the first one first. Go. What's the obvious pattern here? Because there's a concept that we need. Okay, so what do we got? What are our patterns here? Somebody please. Robert, come on. What pattern did you identify? I need somebody to, thank you. I'll take it. I'll qualify it a little to say, starts with a man of virtue, right? Yu was good. In fact, Yu didn't want his son to rule. Yu actually pointed to somebody else and said, this person deserves it, not my son. But the people wanted Yu's son. And so they're like, well, the people want the son. That's the traditional history, starting that dynasty. So both start with a man of virtue. That's the important thing, virtue, right? A man who attracts people to want to be ruled under him. And they decline to the stereotypical last bad ruler, last bad king. This is what people who take AP and such this is one of the cliches. Well, this is the origin of the notion, the concept of the dynastic cycle. Dynasties go in cycles. A good forefather, a good founding father, and just generation by generation by generation, worse and worse sons. And the second question for you is more interesting. You remember there's a problem. I won't even ask the obvious question. Do the people want to be ruled by this last Shang king? Obviously not. He's a dirtbag. But there's a problem with killing him because he's the Shang king. What's the problem? Quickly, come on, guys. What's the problem with killing the Shang king? Now, this is prior lessons. Huh? No. Think about the Shang. Think about the Shang lessons that you've had. The Time Life documentary, the whole notion of oracle bones who the Shang used. What's the problem with killing this king? So what's the problem with killing the king? If you kill the king, what do you lose? I can't hear you. You lose the connection with the ancestors. Well, who cares? What's the big deal about that? I'm trying to get you to state clearly what the obvious problem is here. If we kill him, what's the consequence? Anger who? And what's the consequence? Okay, so big deal. We got some angry dead ancestors. What's the consequence of that? Thank you. Flooding, disease, and all those things that Shang-Di, the High Lord, controls. The Shang King's ancestors talk to the High God Shang-Di. If we kill the Shang King, who is like the Pope, God's only representative on earth, then his ancestors, previous Shang Kings, will speak poorly of us and report to Shang-Di of how much we deserve punishment and all sorts of things. Do you have any questions on that? So my question for you then is a thinking one now. We've set it up. Let me give you 45 seconds or so to think yourselves, and then you can, for another couple of minutes, share what you came up with. How would you kill this? You want to kill this guy. You want to start a new dynasty, but everybody's afraid to support you because they don't want Shang-Di to punish them. How are you going to kill the last Shang King? What did you just mutter? No. Don't use your silly AP knowledge, all right? That's silly. It's totally silly. Oh, I have an idea. I'll just go, the mandate of heaven. That'll work. No, You're talking from AP knowledge. I'm asking you to put yourself in the shoes of a person who has never heard of AP and who is not like going, oh, I know what happened 300 years later, so I'll just, no, I want you to think and not like spout AP nonsense. How are you going to get people, AP is garbage, all right? How are you going to get people, AP is garbage. I don't teach AP for a reason, right? It makes people like memorize the 5 relationships. Now I know Confucius. No, you don't, because you never thought about it. You memorize some stupid little concept. That's 5 relationships. It's dumb. All right, no, I want you to think amongst yourselves. How are you going to persuade everybody to join you in killing this Pope? How are you going to break through that religious fear that the High God's going to punish us? How are you going to break through and get enough people to actually support you to kill the Pope, the Shang King?